Hi, I am René Schepens from European Protein, and together with my colleague Nympha, I'm going to talk to you today about gut health for piglets. And gut health for piglets starts with the sow. In European Protein, we focus on healthy animals because healthy animals are good business for our customers, are sustainable business, and are also good business for us. So we promote health for animals and businesses. Our fermented plant proteins modulate the gut microbiome of both sows and piglets, and that's an important thing. We ferment our products with lactic acid bacteria, and our high-value proteins after fermentation increase the earnings for the farmer and reduce the need for medicines, antibiotics, and zinc oxide. So that is important. We produce a complex mixture of new metabolites during our fermentation that lasts about 5 to 6 days. And we found out by now that we are creating more than 1,500 new metabolites that were not in the raw materials that we started with. So there's really happening a lot in this fermentation process. And because it is a lactic acid fermentation, of course, there is a lot of lactic acid produced, depending on the products, between 5, 6 and sometimes 8% lactic acid in the product. But there's many other bioactive products in there. There's probiotics, there's enzymes, vitamins, and some of these metabolites work antimicrobial, others work anti-inflammatory, so there is a lot of activity going on there. We are producing 3 different kinds of fermented feeds. EP200 is a fermented soy that we mainly feed to growing piglets. We deliver it in a GMO or non-GMO variety, whatever the customer prefers. And next to that, we make only non-GMO products. EP100i is a fermented rapeseed meat, also rapeseed meal, also meant for piglets. And EP199 is a suitable feed to be used for sow feeding, and that consists of fermented rapeseed meal and seaweed that we fermented together. And then we notice there are many more metabolites that we don't get in the rapeseed meal alone. We have a feeding concept opposite to most other feeding companies that do not start with the piglets while they are born. We already start with the sow because we say the first 175 days in a piglet's life are essential for its health further along, and 115 of those 175 days are even before birth. And we know now, opposite to what we thought until a couple of years ago, that piglets are not born completely sterile. They have the beginning of a microbiome, and the composition of that microbiome depends on the composition of the microbiome of the sow. So by feeding the sows EP199 in gestation, we already influence the microbiome of the unborn piglets in the sow. And also the growth of bones, tissue, nerves, and brain is already happening there. And if sows use the nutrients more efficiently and pass them on better to the piglets, we give them a better start. After birth, of course, the skin contact and the feces of the sow are going to imprint the piglets again with her microbiome, together with good milk constitution and good colostrum. That gives the piglets the best possible start to survive the first couple of weeks after being born. And then during the lactation period, you have to get their gut developed so it can digest also dry feed, because after weaning, that's all they will get. And we have noticed that by feeding EP100 or EP200 to those piglets, we develop those guts better and faster with longer villi and a better capacity to digest feed. So that helps them also come over the weaning troubles that you often have with diarrhea and E. coli and all these problems. And then if you get your piglet to 25 kilos without major infections in the gut, that is the best possible piglet you can get to your growing and finishing stable. For the scientific part of our discussion, we are going to Nympha.
Thank you, René. So the origin of maternal feeding arose when a couple of years ago, we conducted a trial with a university where we fed gills and sows with our fermented feed and compared to gills and sows on standard feed. We We analyzed feces. Next slide. We analyzed feces, blood, as well as colostrum. So here you can see the pathogens in the gilt feces. So there was a decrease of 75% of Clostridium perfringens, 96% E. coli, and 95% decrease in fungi in the gills fed with our fermented feed compared to the control. Next slide. Here we measured the immunoglobulins in colostrum. You know that the immunoglobulins are the first line of defense, and the more the immunoglobulins the piglets ingest, the more resilient they are. So here, for gills and sows, the IgG content increased by 40 and 31% compared to the control, and for IgA in gills and sows increased by 32 and 15%. Next slide. Here we measured the minerals in blood. For lack of time, I'll talk just about only phosphorus and iron. Phosphorus is necessary for the proper formation of bone. Here in the gills and sows, you can see an increase of 20 and 36%. And if you look at the data from the offspring, you can see an increase of 23% in the gills. Iron here, you can see 37 and 38% increase. 24 and 27% increase from the gills and sows. And in the piglets, there's a 27 and 34% increase. What is really interesting here is that we do not feed the piglets with our fermented feed. So what you can see here is that the phosphorus and the iron are transferred maternally from the sow to their piglets. Iron is needed for the formation of hemoglobin as well as myoglobin in the muscle. So we measured also the biochemical parameters in gills and piglet blood. Again, here, if you look at the red blood cells, there is an increase in 16% in the red blood cell volume in gills, and there is a 12% increase in red blood cells in the offspring. We also measured iron binding capacity, which increased more than 30% in the piglets. So here again, you can see how increase in iron is connected to increase in hemoglobin as well as red blood cells, what we can see here with feeding of our product as compared to the controls. Next slide. Here we measured the bone properties. These were samples of piglets, of 77-day-old piglets. We saw improved bone structure and mechanical properties of the piglets. So we measured growth plate cartilage, where the total cartilage thickness increased by 53% and the articular cartilage improved by 76%. So total growth cartilage is important for proper piglet growth, or you get stunting of the piglets. And articular cartilage is very necessary for the painless movement of the joints. Next slide. So to document our maternal feeding concept, together with Copenhagen University, already last year, we have started building a gut health database. Here we have 50 farms involved, and in all, we will be taking 1,600 fecal samples as well as blood samples. Before feeding our product, and also after feeding our product after a 5-month cyclus. Besides fecal and blood samples, feed composition, production parameters, and as well as medicine use are also recorded. So this is a graph showing you gut microflora diversity from 19 farms, 456 sows, and 608 samples. So the box represents here 50% of the samples we measure, and the horizontal line is the weighted average of all these measurements. What is very clear here is that there is a significant increase of around 20% of the bacterial species when you compare at the start of the feeding to after the pigs getting our feed after 5 months. It is known that the start of diseases is associated with gut dysbiosis and loss of microbial diversity in the gut microbiota. An intervention to increase this bacterial diversity would result in restoring gut dysbiosis and increasing gut health. Next. So here is another slide showing the promotion of beneficial bacteria. This is the relative abundance in percent of Ruminicoccus. You can see that compared to the before samples, you have a significant increase in the abundance of Ruminicoccus. Ruminicoccus is a fiber-degrading bacteria, and it also produces short-chain fatty acids. And this is a sign of a high productive performance farm, of high productive performance farms. Increase in Ruminicoccus correlates with farrowing performance, positively with farrowing performance, body weight, and daily weight gain. My colleague Rene will take over with the production results.
Yeah, thank you, Nympha. We in practical farms do not have the luxury that we can make control and trial groups, so we can only compare before and after. We did that on many of the farms where we did trials, and what I'm presenting here is the results of Bankers Agro, a Dutch farm that I know myself, and where we did the trial together with our distributor Swinco. I'm going to focus only on a couple of points. Nympha just mentioned fertility. Well, you can see that also here, the percentage non-return and the farrowing percentage is going up on this farm during the trial period. We see the total and live born per liter also going up, 1.1 more live born per liter, where he was already at quite a good number before. And his dead loss in the pre-weaning period has gone down at the same time, which is quite extraordinary. If you get more live-born piglets, often you get also more piglets dying. But in this case, the dead loss went down by 0.3%. So that results together in a higher amount of weaned piglets per sow per year. At 35.8, he already was at a good level, I think within the top 5% of Dutch producers, but he moved up to 38.2 weaned piglets per sow per year. So that's a very good performance on this farm. The piglets were also doing better. They were going to be delivered a week earlier than before. They were growing faster. And before the trial, they used about 30 kilos of feed per piglet. After 5 months, he was at 26 kilos. So they are also more efficient using their feed, and that's a sign of a good developed gut and good gut health. The same happened in the sows. After the trial period, he was down 156 kilos of sow feed per sow per year, while those sows were weaning 2.4 piglets more. So that's quite astonishing. As a result of those two things, he was making 88 euros more per sow per year on the sales of piglets, and that is calculated with a standardized piglet price of 50 euros, because otherwise you can't compare. And he was saving about 25 euros per sow per year on feed cost, both on the feed cost of the sow and the piglets. So while using our product, he was more than earning that back on the lower feed use on his farm. Combined, he was earning 113 euros more per sow per year as a result of using EP 199 in his herd. If we look at production data from many other farms, we have about 40 by now where we've kept the data and that are in the trial long enough to see the differences. That is a cycle normally. We see that on average we move up about 2 to 3 piglets. So what we just saw with Bankers is very consistent with what we see in most of the farms. 2 to 3 piglets more weaned per sow per year. And that's a combination of 1.2 on average more live born per liter, but the piglets are also more uniform and they are more vital. So they stay alive easier. There is a 2 percentage point lower mortality rate, and there is considerably less diarrhea, and that's also an explanation for the lower mortality rate, of course. And then on average, for the farms that weigh their piglets at weaning, the weaning weights have gone up on average 360 grams. So you wean more piglets, but also the piglets that you wean are heavier than before. Again, a sign of good milk production of the sow and a good developed gut in the piglets. If you look at the amount of sow feed that's being used, it's 12% less per produced piglet than before. And that's a combination again of more weaned piglets, but also often 50 to 100 kilos less sow feed per sow per year. Most of our farms are in the 50 to 100 euros more profit per sow per year, and often closer to the 100 than the 50. And in most farms, that means they are earning 20 to 30% more money than they did before. So we think that is a game changer and very interesting to everybody in this market. So that's the end of our presentation. If you want more information, you can go to our website. There's more to be found there, and we are open to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.